What's not to love about the Assassin's Creed franchise? After the release of the original title in 2007, Ubisoft has come out with a new story every year. And with it, a new group of badasses as badass or even more badass than the badasses previous. Centered around the war between the Templars and the Assassins, a war that has spanned centuries and continents, we have met some of the most gangster characters ever. Whether it be the ability to climb up the face of a building some 20 stories, remember the layout of an entire city after seeing it only once, or killing a target with extreme prejudice, if you're the target of one of these killing machines, you're probably going to die and there's nothing you can do about it. I'm Walt, the most gangster nerd on YouTube, and I'm telling you about the 7 most gangster characters in Assassin's Creed. Al-Mualim. Al-Mualim is based on the real-life Rashid ad-Din Sinan, hope I didn't mangle that too badly, who actually led an order of assassins way back in the day, like somewhere between the 1150s and 1180s. Now Al-Mualim from the original AC title was without a doubt a total OG. This man, portrayed in his 60s, was smart enough to figure out that the Templars were after the Piece of Eden, aka the Apple, aka the precursor artifact. So he joins in and helps them locate it. As we know, once this treasure is located, Al-Mualim sends Altair, Malik, and Qadr to steal it first. Afterwards, the Templars, obviously a little angry, attempt to invade Masyaf. In what would seem like a show of overconfidence and bravado, Al-Mualim orders a few of his assassins to commit suicide. In reality, it's a ploy to flank the Templars and kill them with giant logs. He then boldly warns the Templars, "Leave now, before I am forced to thin your numbers further." Later on, he then makes an example of Altair in front of everyone for not following the creed, right after Altair pretty much single-handedly repelled the Templar forces. After this, he demotes Altair, but allows him to earn his rank back via a mission to kill 9 men, which he does. As it turned out, these 9 men were the Templars, who also knew about the Piece of Eden. So let that sit in for a moment. Al-Mualim uses the Templars to find the treasure. He then uses Altair to steal the treasure, then accosts Altair and orders him to kill the men he used to find the same treasure Altair was sent to steal. Once he got word that all the Templars were dead, he then uses the Pieces of Eden to take total control of both his order of assassins and the entire civilian population of Masyaf. Now, as we know, he does meet his end at the hand of Altair, but all things considered, he definitely deserves a place on this list. Altair ibn Lahad. Altair, from the original title, the Chronicles titles, and Revelations, is without a doubt one of the most strongest-willed characters in video game history. His biography reads like a Shakespearean or Greek tragedy. His father was executed, his mother died in childbirth, and he was raised by Al-Mualim. Oh, what fun that must have been. He was raised in the order, became the youngest master assassin ever. However, tragedy and misfortune would strike again, a recurring theme through his life, as he failed to steal the Apple of Eden from the Templars. Along with that, he would inadvertently lead the Templars back to Masyaf. After what seemed like him fearless to his own death, he flanks the Templar position and kills a large number of them with giant logs. What would be a hero's moment, Al-Mualim berates him and stabs him in front of everyone. Al-Mualim then demotes him to a novice, and if he wants his rank back, he must go kill 9 men located all over the Holy Land, which he does, like a boss. Altair would travel between 3 separate cities, Jerusalem, Damascus, and Acre, killing these men and uncovering the truth about both Al-Mualim and the Templars. Once he accomplishes his mission, he has a brief bro moment with King Richard the Lionhearted in Arsuf, before heading back to Masyaf. He arrives in Masyaf and finds that Al-Mualim has taken over the entire city. He goes through mortal hell, but manages to kill his mentor. Afterwards, he rebuilds the Assassin Order into a worldwide presence, However, his rival and all-around total douchebag, Abbas, would swoop in, kill Altair's son, and take over the order while Altair was absent fighting Mongolians. Altair would return to confront Abbas in person, but this only led to his wife getting killed, forcing Altair into exile. But Altair would not be outdone. He would return and convince the order to return to him, and manage to kill Abbas with the unknown invention at the time, a gun. A few years later, he would meet and protect Niccolo Polo, father of Marco, and send him off with volumes of information and knowledge once housed in the library at Masyaf. In his final act, he would empty out the library at Masyaf, scattering the information throughout the world. He would then entomb himself with the Apple of Eden in the library to seal the artifact away and to mislead Templars. Now let's just take a second to reflect. Altair lost both parents, was raised by an overbearing authority figure, would rise and fall, then rise and fall harder, and then rise once more to greatness. He lost his wife, his son, and he never once backed down or submitted. He even had to cut off his own ring finger to become an assassin. Even in death, he accomplished something, and that's why Altair definitely is one of the most gangster characters in Assassin's Creed. Shay Cormac. Shay Cormac from Assassin's Creed Rogue was without a doubt a total killing machine. Similar to Altair, his mother died in childbirth. His father was a merchant marine, but would be killed at sea later in Shay's life. After this, Shay would be inducted into the Assassins. Fast forward, and Shay is sent to a precursor site in Portugal by then a mentor, Achilles Davenport. As a direct result of the mission, Shay inadvertently kills hundreds of people by tampering with what he mistakenly believed was an Apple of Eden. A bit angered by this, Shay storms back home and lays a lyrical beatdown on his mentor Achilles. He then goes total thug life and takes the manuscript, another precursor object, but is caught and presumably killed. Unfortunately for the assassins, Shay survived, and not only survived, was rescued by the Templars. He is brought back up to health by people associated with Colonel Monroe, a high-ranking Templar, and after taking out a local gang allied with the assassins, Monroe starts to bring Shay towards the Templars, enlisting him in some insane tasks such as rescuing Christopher Gist, another Templar, and destroying a poison gas factory controlled by the assassins. Shay is so badass, Monroe even entrusts him with the precursor box, another piece of Eden. Fast forward, and during the siege of Fort William Henry in August of 1757, Shay sets sail and shows up just in time to save Monroe from a combined attack of French and natives. Monroe then travels to Albany to protect against an inevitable French invasion, but in reality, it's a setup. The assassins sent Shay's former BFF Liam to kill Monroe in Albany, and sent Kesagawase to keep his troops busy at Fort William Henry. To Kesagawase's shock, he finds a still alive Shay Cormac helping the Templars. Shay manages to kill Kesagawase with a puckle gun, kinda messed up, and before he dies, Shay forces him to tell him that Liam had already killed Monroe. Shay frantically gets back to Albany in time to rescue Monroe, but was not fast enough to save his life. In Monroe's last moments, he gives Shay his Templar ring and instructs Shay on what to do next. At this point, Shay is initiated into the Templars. After this, Shay will systematically hunt down every single assassin he used to consider an ally and kill them. Shay kills Adewale, Hope, Chevalier. He would have killed his former best friend Liam, but during a fall, Liam is mortally wounded while Shay is unhurt. He then manages to persuade Templar Grand Master and all-around total badass Haytham Kenway not to kill Achilles, making a very intelligent argument that if they kill the leader of the assassins, the other assassins will blindly continue to search for the temples that house these pieces of Eden that cause the terrible earthquakes. Haytham still cripples Achilles, but spares him nonetheless. That same day, Haytham charges Shay with tracking down and recovering the precursor box, which had been reclaimed by the assassins. The last time we see Shay, he enters the Palace of Versailles with a little help from Benjamin Franklin, and then kills Charles Dorian in a crowded hallway with no one aware of the fact. He recovers the precursor box and makes an escape so smooth no one even noticed him. In retrospect, Shay never failed a mission. Never. The only loss we see him suffer is when he, outnumbered by the assassins and shot, fell onto a sheet of ice. That's it. He recovered and claimed revenge. However, we also seen that Shay never compromised his beliefs. He didn't join the Templars and change. Every death was justified in his mind. We didn't see a non-stop murderer as much as we seen a man trying to protect the world. Along with that, he was nearly unstoppable. He never lost a single fight and killed every target. No one escaped. And for that, he has definitely earned a spot on this list. Edward Thatch. Edward Thatch, aka Blackbeard, is based on the legendary pirate by the same name. Shocker, I know. The video game AC Black Flag is very precise with a lot of things they tell about him while taking subtle liberties. It is true that he started out as a privateer with Benjamin Hornigold and that he spent some time in Nassau. His blockade of Charlestown, South Carolina, which was his way of procuring medicine dearly needed in Nassau, also actually happened. The man would burn fuses in his own hair, mix gunpowder into his rum, and a wide array of other borderline psychopathic stunts to intimidate any and all who would dare challenge him. He did accept a pardon from Charles Eden, the governor of North Carolina, but was killed in an ambush by Lieutenant Robert Maynard. Not that he went down easily. After fighting off Maynard's men in an initial attack, he then boarded Maynard's ship to confront him directly. However, Maynard had ordered a large number of his men to hide within the ship, and when Blackbeard boarded the ship, Maynard sprung his trap. In the video game, Black Flag, Blackbeard does go down. In reality, it would take 5 gunshots and 20 sword wounds to take him down. Now, neither an assassin or a Templar, and I doubt even aware of them or their war, Blackbeard was his own man and did things his own way. He was able to establish a pirate republic and did actually try to make it work. He was feared for his skill at sea, and perhaps if he hadn't kept on pirating after his pardon in North Carolina, it's likely he would have led a long, happy, retired life. But some habits die hard. He did fall in battle and found his way on this list. Crawford Sterrick. Crawford Sterrick is a prime example of having everything and it not being enough. Born the youngest of all his siblings and extremely rich, Sterrick would attend the best schools and be highly educated in business and sports. Once his academic years were behind him, Sterrick inherited his family's railroad factory and started buying out his competitors. From here, he would grow his business into a conglomerate and would literally put his hands into everything. He was into currency manipulation, owned several factories that employed children, was paid for everything that moved through the docks, controlled the criminal underground, and it's so much easier to just stop there. As luck would have it, the Fry twins would come to London to both search for the Shroud of Eden and take out Sterrick. Sterrick had also been searching for the same shroud. Now, as we know, Jacob and Evie slowly but surely take out every ally Sterrick has, and Sterrick is so grief-stricken at one point that he shoots another Templar for annoying him after the loss of his cousin Pearl Attaway. However, Sterrick perseveres and locates the Shroud of Eden. It's hidden beneath Buckingham Palace. Why? Who knows? Just one small glitch in the plan. Evie Fry happens to have the only key to the inner chamber where the shroud is hidden. Sterrick, being extremely intelligent and totally twisted, manages to position snipers on the roof of Buckingham Palace. His plan is to kill all the people there, being as they're all heads of state and heads of churches. While there, he finds Evie and asks her to dance. While dancing, Sterrick reveals his plan. However, Jacob becomes smart to the shooters on the roof and moves in to take them out. Once he takes them all out, he signals Evie that she's in the clear, and at that point, she gives Sterrick a solid knee to the midsection. What she didn't notice was that Sterrick managed to slip the key to the chamber off of her, which is incredible considering that it was on a necklace that she happened to be wearing. Now, we know Sterrick does eventually get the shroud and also gets killed, but in the entire history of Assassin's Creed, there has never been an antagonist as polished and eccentric, rich, etc., etc., Though starting out a rich little snot, he would erect an empire, the likes of which has never been seen. He is completely ice cold. He knows and is cool with kids working in the factory he owns. Killing his own people is on the table for him, and though short-lived, this list would be incorrect if it didn't consider Sterk. Haytham Kenway. One of the most hated characters and one of the most well-liked, Haytham comes off as a totally pompous aristocratic type. He dresses very well, stays clean-shaven, and wears his hair in a ponytail to let you know he's no punk and ain't nothing to be messed with. He is the son of legendary master assassin Edward Kenway, and at a young age he would witness his father's death, see his sister kidnapped, he would be adopted by Reginald Birch, a Templar, and raised in the ways of the Templar Order. He would spend many years trying to relocate his sister, and over time he would rise within the Order, becoming a Master Templar, and sent on missions such as the one to assist another Templar named Braddock, as well as being sent to the American colonies to locate and investigate a First Civilization storehouse. As well as killing the assassin Miko to gain possession of the key he had, which was believed to open a First Civilization temple, Haytham would unfortunately find that the key did not open the storehouse he had been sent there to investigate. Undaunted, Haytham decides to build up the Order and keep investigating any information regarding precursor sites. He becomes the first Grand Master of the Colonial Rite of Templars, and also begins a relationship with and ultimately fathers a child by a native woman named Nope, not even gonna try. Some time passes, and he receives word on where to find his sister Jennifer, and that she is in Damascus. So Haytham sets off. Long story short, Haytham saves Jennifer, and finds out Reginald Birch had his father killed and his sister kidnapped. So Haytham and Jennifer go to Reginald and confront him, and end up ultimately killing him. After this, him and his sister would grow apart, and he would return to the American colonies. He would induct the likes of Charles Lee and Shay Cormac into the Templars. He would oversee the total annihilation of the assassins in the Americas, and cripple the assassin leader Achilles Davenport. However, years prior, he had fathered a son with a native woman. That son grew up to become Connor Kenway. Haytham tried at first to quick and easy Connor out of the way, but Connor would prove too smart. Soon after, he would team up with his son to eliminate Ben Church, a traitor to the Templar Order. Also, when Connor thwarted Thomas Hickey's assassination attempt and subsequently got himself charged with treason and sentenced to be hanged, it was Haytham that threw the knife that freed Connor. However, in the long run, Haytham remained loyal to the Templar Order. Knowing that Connor was hunting Charles Lee, Haytham sent Charles away and waited for Connor himself, knowing what may happen. Haytham and Connor end up getting in a fight to the death, with Connor landing the killing blow while Haytham was on top of him strangling him. Even in death, Haytham managed to keep it 100, stating that he would not weep in wonder at what may have been. He also shared with him that he was proud of him, and that he should have killed him at first. Looking back, Haytham, like many others on this list, had a rough go as a child. His father was killed in front of him, his sister stolen, and though he regained her, the scars were there. He was raised by Reginald Birch, even though Reginald Birch took care of him and brought him into the Order, and was his surrogate father. Haytham still had revenge on him when he found out the truth. He would seek out and possess from time to time different pieces of Eden, as well as find many precursor sites. And yes, Shay Cormac did do all of the legwork in killing off the American assassins, but the planning was all Haytham. Haytham was always in control of the situation. Calm, cool, collected, a little smarmy, but that aside, a force to be reckoned with. Edward Kenway. The hard-drinking, swashbuckling, sword-fighting, gun-shooting, tavern-brawling, ship-sailing, hardcore pirate, this man was bad. One of, if not the most popular, playable assassins in the franchise, his story is probably the best. We first meet Edward as a pirate during a battle at sea. The ship Edward sails on just happened to attack a ship transporting an assassin, Duncan Walpole. The battle ends with Edward's ship exploding, and Edward and Duncan the only survivors. Once they both make it to shore, Edward gives chase to the assassin, runs him down, and kills him. On Duncan's person was a letter from Templar Grand Master Torres, through which Edward finds out about the Templars and decide he's going to collect the reward promised to Duncan. He, by dumb luck, finds a defenseless Steed Bonnet being attacked by soldiers. Edward quickly kills the soldiers and frees Bonnet. He had intended to steal Bonnet's ship, but ruled against it after discovering Bonnet was heading to Havana, which is where he needed to go to meet with Templar Master Torres. The two set sail and arrive quickly in Havana. Upon their arrival, Edward swindles Steed into buying him a pair of swords, and ends up getting him beat up. The two part company, however, as Edward has a meeting to attend. Edward arrives to meet Torres as well as Woodes Rogers and Julian Ducasse. After some small talk and a gift of some new hidden blades, Edward meets Torres as Duncan Walpole, and is officially inducted into the Templar Order. Let that sink in. Edward Kenway, a civilian, is perpetrating as Duncan Walpole, an assassin, and becoming a Templar. Epic fail, Grandmaster Torres. After finding out about the observatory, the sage Bartholomew Edwards, and killing off a small contingent of assassins, Edward is paid a sum of money not to his liking and decides, you know what, I'm just going to steal it first, all by myself. So Edward returns to try and kidnap the sage, but when he arrives, there's a pile of dead bodies, and the Templars have figured him out. He holds to his bravado, though, and when the Templars ask him his real name, he answers them, Captain Pissoff. Torres has him imprisoned on a ship, but unfortunately for him, they put Edward right beside another walking ass-kicking, Adewale. The two team up, quickly escaping and freeing a large number of prisoners, take over ship and make their escape. Edward takes over as captain of the ship and names Adewale his quartermaster. A solid move, as Adewale and him would become an unstoppable force with Adi as his advisor. The two set out for and arrive in Nassau, and once there, Edward introduces Adewale to Edward Thatch, Benjamin Hornigold, and James Kidd. They immediately question Edward on his choice of quartermaster, but Edward defends his choice, stating that Adewale had saved his life. Fast forward, and Edward and his compatriots have formed the Pirate Republic in Nassau. They even set out on an ambitious quest to seize a galleon and use it as a defensive weapon. The ship just happened to belong to one Julian Ducasse, and Edward, being intelligent, sneaked aboard the ship and killed Julian, so he could not spread the word of his surviving the escape. Afterwards, he took the ship back to Nassau. It's at this point the inevitability of Edward joining the assassins comes in. James Kidd seems to figure out that Edward has eagle vision and tricks Edward into showing him. James also tells Edward to meet him in Tulum in a few weeks. Edward arrives and mistakenly thinks James has been captured by monks, who are in reality the assassin order. And they're not thrilled to see him. Edward is set in on by the mentor of these assassins, Al-Tabai, and after confirming that the sage has indeed returned and that Edward has eagle vision, Al-Tabai banishes Edward from Tulum. He's not too cool with all the assassins Edward killed in Cuba, or the information that Edward delivered to the Templars as Duncan Walpole. When Edward gets back to Nassau, he finds out through Charles Vane that Torres is nearby with a huge sum of money, so Edward takes off immediately, sails for the fort Torres is held up in, storms it, takes the money, and forces Torres to give up the info on the sage. Apparently a slave runner named Prinz has found him, so Edward informs Torres that he will be assisting him in capturing Bartholomew Roberts the sage. Awesome! Together, Edward and Torres arrive, and Torres goes to meet Prinz, with Edward telling him. Edward, while telling Prinz, notices that James Kidd just happens to be there too. Where would Edward be without Adewale? And then it clicks. James is after Prinz. So Edward manages to intercept James and then talk him into waiting to kill Prinz and Torres. As it turns out, James is after both. How lucky he must have felt, until Edward ruined it. But soon after, they both get made by Prinz and Torres slips away. That night, Edward and James trace back Prinz to his home and infiltrate it. Edward kills Prinz, and just when things seem to be going his way, James, or Mary Read, yeah, huge surprise, not really, Mary is being held by the sage at gunpoint. However, the sage shoots a nearby alarm bell which brings soldiers running, and then he makes his escape. Edward and Mary also manage to slip away, after which Mary threatens Edward to never speak of this to anyone, which he agrees. Not long after this little adventure, Thatch, Hornigold, and Edward discuss things going on in Nassau and agree that they're screwed if they don't have medicine. So a new adventure. Edward goes to a shipwreck, and Thatch goes crazy. He attacks British's ships for their medicine, and Edward comes to his aid, but the amount of medicine on the ship is little to none. But the crates the medicine were in was stamped from Charlestown, which Edward suggests they simply go to the source. Good idea and all. Well, a month later, Edward arrives and finds Thatch with hostages, pretty much softcore terror. Edward finds out that Hatch has been doing this for a while, that he set a team to collect the medicine, and they disappeared. So, wanting this incident over with, quick, fast, and in a hurry, Edward sneaks into Charlestown, gets the medicine and instructions on how to make more, gets back to Thatch and gives him the medicine. Let's return to Nassau, huzzah! Except no, Thatch plans on retiring. Bummer. So Edward returns to Nassau alone, and as he arrives, another Templar blast from the past, Woodes Rogers, shows up and informs the pirates that everyone's getting pardoned for piracy, but that they have to stay in Nassau no matter what. Oh yeah, and we've blocked you in. Edward decides it's time to leave Nassau, and he and another pirate, Charles Vane, hatch a plan to break through the blockade. And while they were at it, they managed to kill Commodore of the fleet, Peter Chamberlain. Once free, Edward sets sail for his stronghold at Great Anagua, and then onward to Ocracoke to try and persuade Thatch to return to the West Indies. Blackbeard refuses, but unfortunately a British attack ends up getting Thatch killed. Edward did try to help his friend, but it was no use. After this, he returns to Great Anagua and enlists the help of Charles Vane to help him find the observatory. This would have been a good team-up, except they were immediately mutined out by their crew in favor of one Calico Jack, who marooned the two on a broken ship with no sails and no rudders. This would be bad, as Edward ended up marooning Charles Vane, then taking a nearby fishing boat, sailing back to Anagua once again. Once there, he meets up with Ottawally, who just so happened to have found out that the ship the Sage was on, the Princess, was due in Kingston. They go in wait, but are discovered by Ben Hornigold, who is now a Templar agent. Edward gets away and sets sail for Principe, which is where the Princess is supposed to be. Once he gets there, he finds the Princess's crew either dead, captured, and Bartholomew Roberts hiding. The two make an agreement. If Edward gets Roberts' crew back, Roberts will show him the observatory. So Edward does it, like a boss, and the two set off for the observatory with a brief stop to kill Ben Hornigold, who was following them. Once there, Roberts shows Kenway the observatory and then tries to kill him. Edward manages to escape but was severely injured. This allowed Roberts to simply take him and hand him over to the British. Some time would pass and Edward would be locked up, with the Templars trying to get the location of the observatory out of him, but he refused. Just when it seemed he was stuck there forever, Altabai shows up and frees him. Altabai was there to rescue Anne Bonny and Mary Read, but would need Edward's help to find them. Edward does help, and Altabai returns him the assassin's robes he had stole years before. Not long after this, Edward is found in a drunken stupor by Ottawally, who returns Edward's ship back to its owner and tells Edward he can't be his quartermaster anymore. He also urges Edward to go to Tulum, and Edward takes his advice. Upon arrival, he ultimately decides to join the Assassin's Order. He is then tasked with killing Bartholomew Roberts, Torres, and Woodes Rogers, which he does. After this, we see Edward give his compound to the Assassin Order and leave with his daughter to return to England. Looking back, Edward's story is probably the best thought and played out. We witness him grow from a brash, harsh, thieving, killing, drinking pirate into an assassin. Along with that, we also got to do a lot of awesome stuff with him. He is one of the smartest and most clever to have ever put on the assassin's robes. He was the most well-armed assassin in history, toting around 2 swords, 2 hidden blades, 4 pistols, a blowgun, a variety of darts, throwing knives, smoke bombs, and rope darts. It's crazy. Given all this, it's no wonder why Edward is the most gangster assassin of all time. So, do you agree, disagree, hate, love? Let me know in the comments. I'm Walt, the most gangster nerd on YouTube, and I'll see you soon.